session for July 7th, 2025 to order, and the city manager, Miles Braswell, will review the consent agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, tonight on consent, you have 14 items. The first item is the approval of regular meeting minutes for October 7th, 2024, and May 5th, 2025. Item number B2 is approval of the city council workshop meeting minutes from October 21st, 2024, December 16th, 2024, and May 19th, 2025. Item B3 is approval of special meeting minutes from May 13th, 2025 and June 2nd, 2025. And there were various edits that Mayor Pro Tem has provided our city clerk, and so they're all included in the iCompass online right now. So maybe a little bit different than what's in your council packets for items B1, 2, and 3.
And I think the meeting minutes are from June 2nd, not May 5th or whatever. I think there might have been a mistake as to that.
On B1 you're talking about?
B1, yeah. It was October 7th, 2024 and June 2nd, 2025.
Correct. That's right. May 5th is not included there. Agenda item B4 is the lease agreement for City Hall, 115 North Main Street. This Montrose Area Chamber of Commerce has leased the space at City Hall for several years, and so this lease agreement extends the lease for a 5-year term at the June 2nd City Council regular meeting. Staff was directed to advertise the notice of intent to lease the property on June 6th. This legal notice was posted in the Gazette, so there's a resolution for approval along with the actual lease itself for item B4. Item B5 is a Firehouse Subs grant. This is a non-matching grant that the fire department has requested. They would like to use the funds, if these are awarded, to purchase an ATV where they could provide rescues and medical service along the Seven Oaks Trail and various other trails as well. Item B6 is an updated travel and expense policy. This is from the Finance Department, and our Finance Director, Jared Piles, has made several edits and is proposing a new travel policy. So we're recommending approval of this new travel policy. It's item B6. Item B7 is the approval of declaration of surplus property for the police department. Vehicles, there are 4 vehicles that are listed on the agenda item memo. Item B8 is the acceptance of River Mist Drive. Our Public Works Department has inspected the street, and they requested ownership and maintenance of River Mist Drive from South Point Road, where it ties into Bellwood Drive. Item B9 is approval of the road closure request for Boo Fest. This is the Community Development Department requesting to approve the closure of Main Street in conjunction with the City of Belmont's annual Boo Fest on Saturday, October 25th. There's an ordinance and a map included inside your agenda packet. Item B10 is the Main Street DBDA amended bylaws. The Downtown Belmont Development Association voted unanimously to adopt the amended bylaws on June 18th, 2025, and now they wish for City Council to approve the amended bylaws. Item B11 is approval of an ordinance authorizing the closing of Hill Street for the sale, possession, and consumption of alcoholic beverages during the 2025 Literary Festival. And that's in the Upper Field of Stowe Park on August 30th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And the closure of Hill Street, which is directly behind the old middle school, include is the ordinance and a map for the literary festival. Item B12 is the acceptance of a petition requesting non-contiguous annexation and authorization for city clerk to investigate sufficiency for Lakeview Farms. Enclosed is the various documents for this non-contiguous annexation. The previous annexation documents had some language in there for contiguous annexation. There's two state laws, one that surrounds contiguous annexation, one that's non-contiguous. And so we just need to amend our annexation ordinance, which includes the development agreement to match the non-contiguous annexation. On the description of this item, you can see that it does state contiguous on just make note what that is an error. It should state non-contiguous. And also the agenda memo itself states contiguous annexation for B12. That should state non-contiguous annexation.
However, the application itself states non-contiguous.
Yes, you're right on that. It's non-contiguous for that application. Item B13 is to consider approval of Belmont Run Club's use of Rocky Branch Park. This is for the use of Rocky Branch Park during the 2025 To the Good Times Trail Run. The event will take place on October 4th, 2025, from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And there's ordinance included inside your packet. Item B13 and item B14 is consideration and approval of Dirty Wolf Racing use of Rocky Branch Park. This is the use of Rocky Branch Park for their 2025 Black Copperhead Sting 50K. Take place on October the 16th, 2025 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that would be your consent items. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll turn it back over to you for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager on the consent agenda items?
A couple. First on B4, I know the lease agreement with the old city hall. I know we're awaiting design proposals from the architect for that. Are there any provisions in that lease agreement that, as we're looking to review it, would allow for that work to be done, or maybe relocate them temporarily until that work can be done?
Right. If council so chooses to renovate Old City Hall, then we would, of course, get in touch with Montrose and then recommend amendments to the actual lease agreement. And there's a provision inside the lease agreement for amendments.
Okay.
So we're doing that.
All right. And then the other item I had a question about was B10, the amended DBDA bylaws. I think I understand the main impetus for revising those bylaws was really geared more towards the mission of the board and kind of where there was maybe some misalignment between the previous duties and responsibilities of the board versus what they felt like their mission actually was. So that was the main impetus for it. But it sounds like there were also term limits, I guess, added for the board members like we have for a lot of most of our boards, I think. But the one question that several of us had raised previously is, do we want to at least discuss or evaluate the requirement for residency in the city for board members and actually businesses that are affiliated or, I guess affiliated is probably the proper term, with the DBDA. I don't know if most of you, we've had some informal discussions about that. Anybody else have any comments or feedback on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth discussing potentially. I think you're referring to, so all of our boards require, except for planning and zoning, require Belmont residency. And planning and zoning requires a member to be a part of the ETJ to represent, or doesn't require, but is in the attendance.
Well, there's an ETJC.
That's what I'm saying,
Yes.
right? But it's a Belmont board, right? So
Yes.
it's not in the city limits, the member on that board. So you're saying, in regards to this board, keeping it to Belmont residents and potentially business owners as well? No.
If we want to substantively discuss it, should the motion be to move it to the regular agenda and then have the discussion? And then I think we could, if there's an amendment needed, we can amend accordingly. Is that fair?
So we're gonna move B10 to the regular agenda?
Yes, if that's, well, is there a,
Oh, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we need to have the item number that's going, that's to move.
So it would be C7.
C7. So I'll make a motion to move item B 10 to item C7.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? All right, that shall be done. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Other than I had just some grammatical and spelling edits to some of the documents, but,
I have one.
oh, go ahead.
So have we discussed, Miles, at kind of like at the staff level with the chamber, what would happen if, we do proceed with the renovations at City Hall?
They are aware that we're studying it right now. We talked about timing, if you all decided to renovate the city hall, like when that would occur, because it would be that, it's not currently budgeted. Depends on the renovations as well, like how long it would take for us to actually design something, bid it out. And I told, or informed Jennifer Reed, who's in the audience as well, I'd like to ask her any questions about it, but, it would probably be at least over a year before anything would occur anyway. It's not like we would have the results of a study and then you all the next day
Right.
go under contract. It would still take us time to get to that point, but I did inform her that you all were looking at. Plus, the architect has been over to Old City Hall several times to look at it as well. As far as how long it may take or what that may look like, I don't have an idea for that.
Do we, by chance, have another area that they could go if it was to proceed? I mean, if I just think about the term of this agreement, if they were being willing, and I think it's a plus that they're here in the city of Belmont. It's something that we've always discussed previously on council, so we don't want to displace them and they go to another municipality. And do we have areas open for them if needed?
I don't know about the Ford Center, that's under review right now as well, which we plan to bring that back to your all attention. We met with the architect last week, and so I probably wouldn't say the Ford Center. We could look around and see if we have other available spaces.
Of course it
in the
does.
city.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call it out. Nothing to discuss tonight, but just something maybe to keep in mind.
Yes. So, all right. Anything further? All right, then we will move into the regular meeting. I will call the regular meeting of the Belmont City Council for Monday, July 7th, 2025 to order. If everyone would please stand. Before we proceed any further, we'd like to begin this evening's meeting with a moment of silence. Our former mayor, Charlie Martin, who was mayor from 2013 to 2023, city council member for several terms before that, and overall just a great ambassador for Belmont, very involved in the community and knew just about everyone in town. Charlie passed away this past Tuesday, and the funeral was Saturday, so we'd just like to begin with a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you. For the invocation, Councilman Jason Rumfeld.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together for this important meeting to conduct business on behalf of the city and our citizens. We thank you for your provision and blessings upon our community and for our staff who spent time preparing the presentations that we will hear tonight. We pray for peace for the entire Martin family, as we are all very grateful for the kindred spirit and dedicated service that former Mayor Martin provided to our town for so many decades. We pray that you continue to keep our community safe, and we thank you for the diligent hard work of the brave men and women who are tasked with ensuring our well-being. We ask for your guidance as we consider the matters before us tonight, and we pray all of this in your heavenly name.
Amen. Councilman Alex Sooks, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, please repeat after me. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have several recognitions and acknowledgments to begin the meeting this evening. First, I believe the city manager wishes to introduce our new Parks and Recreation Director, Jason Lineberger.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tonight I have a special introduction. I'd like to call Jason Lineberger and his family up to the podium. So as you're all aware, Zip Stowe was our previous Parks and Rec director who had spent probably over 40 years in various municipalities over the county. He did a really good job, but he did announce his retirement, which means that it opened up an opportunity for someone else to fill that role. We put out the job description, and it was a highly sought after position, let me just tell you. It was probably over 250, and I think, I don't recall the exact figure, but probably 280 or so applicants that actually put in for this position. And I'm excited that we hired Jason Lineberger to fulfill this role. Mr. Lineberger comes to the city after being employed by Gaston County Schools, where he has worked for the past 22 years, serving as a teacher and a coach at South Point High School. He holds a bachelor's degree in physical education from Carson Newman College.
Eagles.
The Eagles? So he is very qualified, and given that he has knowledge in recreation facilities. He has a passion to develop youth sports and, of course, his leadership abilities. So we look forward to Jason and what it may be for the Parks and Rec Department in the near future. So congratulations, Jason.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that I'm incredibly thankful for this job opportunity. I've been able to meet a bunch of people. I'm very excited with the people I'm going to get to work with and the way they work together. We've got a group that's passionate about what they're doing. We're looking forward to making improvements, a bunch of small improvements each day that add up to some big ones. And we want to make the Belmont Parks and Rec a reason for people to move to Belmont. We want to make it elite, and we're passionate about doing that. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Jason, before you take a step away, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and your family, because I know the service that you and your family have provided to this community, not just at South Point, but you've raised up a lot of young men, and the job that you've done at South Point. I was talking to our AD today, and he reminded me that in 50 years at South Point, we've only had 3 baseball coaches. And 42 of those 50, the last name's been Lineberger. And these guys are regulars in the state championship game, and you guys have just had a standard of excellence, not only on the ball field, but in the classroom. And we just appreciate all the leadership and excellence that you've instilled among these folks, and we're excited.
Well, thank you. My wife and I both grew up in this community, and we believe this is a special place, and that's why we're so passionate about what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to take a picture?
Yeah.
That's not a picture. You want to get up there? Yeah. Hey, Laura, let the council get around this.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, welcome again, Jason. Next we have recognition of our recent skate park competition, and for that we have former City Councilwoman Martha Stowe, and we have Sergeant T.J. Green, or, yeah, very good. we have some remarks on the way.
Good evening. As many of you know, we recently had our annual skateboarding competition. We try to host events to partner with many members of the community. We've done 3-point competitions and stuff. But 3 years ago, we decided to host a skateboarding event for National Go Skateboarding Day. And unfortunately, that day it rained a little bit. We didn't expect anybody to show up. The rain stopped right before the event started. And we were flooded with a group of kids that came out, and they just wanted to hang out. They saw the cars, they went out and skated and stuff. And that year was just it was a starting point. The next year, we were to partner with a couple businesses, made it a little bit bigger, saw that we did have a lot of interest in this. We made some really good connections in the community with a group that in the past felt as though the police didn't like them. And it's just kind of I guess the culture that goes along with skateboarding. But we were able to make those really good those connections. This year it was even bigger and better. We had food vendors and live music, and then we had a great turnout from the community. We also during these events we promote safety, so we've given out free skateboarding helmets. We had the hot car display out there. I think the hottest temperature we saw inside the car was 153 degrees. So it was really neat to see that, and we've had people from across the state come to this competition. So it's a really good event that we enjoy, and we are able to, like I said, communicate with people in our community as well as the region.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say a few words because none of us are skateboarders that I see.
You are not?
There.
You are.
Well, I may look like it, but I'm not. It was quite overwhelming to see the group of kids and the adults. But it was also, because we were there from 4 to 9 or 10, and people talked to you. There were a lot of wonderful stories I want to share too. One with the 5-year-old who told the dad, every time I come here, I'm learning something new. So that was really cool. But then another one that was particularly touching to me, we have a 13-year-old, and he said, I have a lot of trouble with depression and my family issues. And he said, the people here are my family. They have made me feel good. They work together. Talked to a number of adults who said this really is a community. So we're providing not just the skateboard part, but an option for teenagers and other kids to have some connection with adults that maybe they don't have at home. So to me, that was quite an impact. So I just want to let you know that not just the skateboarding stuff, it's all the other that goes with it.
Thank you, Martha and Sergeant Green.
I think it would be worth noting that none of this would be possible without Martha, who spearheaded this project a number of years ago and ensured that council used the funding for this project as well. So that's definitely the fruits of your labor, Martha.
Yes. Thank you again, Martha. All right. Well, that concludes our recognitions and acknowledgments. At this time, I entertain a motion to set the agenda for the meeting.
Motion to set the agenda.
Second. Motion made by Alex, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda subject to moving item B10 to item C7.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda by moving B10 to C7.
Sorry. A motion made by Alex, seconded by Jason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved subject to that qualification. All right. Very good. That brings us to the regular agenda, and we have item C1, public comment. And we have our, yes, there we are. So again, all speakers have up to 3 minutes on any topic. We will time you here. Green is good. Yellow means close to up. Red is stop. Speakers must sign up with full name and address. Please be respectful of City Council staff and the public. This is a time for speakers to bring a matter to the mayor and City Council's attention. There is no discussion or debate about items. However, if warranted, the mayor and City Council may ask City staff to follow up with the speaker on his or her concern. And of course, this is separate from any various public hearing items that we might also be having. This is general public comment. So with that out of the way, our first speaker is Michelle Lasardo.
Hello again. My name is Michelle Lasardo, and I live at 808 Catawba Street. With me today is Eileen Embledge, who lives at 713 South Main Street. Together, we co-organized Belmont Pride, which took place exactly 1 month ago on Saturday, June 7th. Before we reflect on the day, we would like to offer our condolences to the family of Charlie Martin and all of those whose lives he touched during his time in office. We are pleased to report that Belmont Pride was a huge success. 13 downtown businesses and 25 other will visit our town from other areas, bringing revenue to the participating businesses, and our downtown area. The geo-tracking data on that day also shows the increase in visits to Belmont and just how big our impact was. We were even invited by Charlotte Pride to walk in their parade next month, where we will proudly represent the diversity of Belmont. But what proved to be the best part of the day was the joy, love, and celebration had by everyone in attendance. We had no issues and no drama. You can clearly see that people felt safe to be exactly who they are. Countless people came up to us, thanking us for putting this event on, which was humbling. Those who are part of our local LGBTQ community, as well as so many allies, were in attendance. With Belmont being a family-friendly town, it was heartwarming to see those who brought their kids, showing them what true love and acceptance means. Many said they never thought they would see the day that a Pride event happened in Belmont, and we were proud to have facilitated the first one for our community. All in all, the day went off without a hitch and represented a side of Belmont many have longed to see. But we can't quite leave today without addressing you, Councilman Hill. In your post of our event, just days after it was launched, you referenced us as new residents to Belmont, making sure people knew that this was not a city-sponsored event and purposely trying to start controversy. Except that you know Eileen and I have each lived here a long time and have done so much for this community. Initially, you deleted the comments in support of Pride off of your post while leaving up the hateful ones. Your first instinct was to try to cancel it without any knowledge of what the day even would be like. Your own constituents asked, why wouldn't the city want to sponsor an event like this? You did get one thing correct. We thought it would be a good idea, and it turns out it was the best idea we ever had. Despite your attempt to minimize us, your post actually drew more people to our event, so thank you for that. As a spokesperson for the City of Belmont, I hope you'll reconsider what you choose to put online going forward. To everyone else on the council, it's disappointing that not one of you showed any support for this event or that community that you represent as well. We will continue to host this event every year. Next year, we will be approaching you in the City of Belmont to ask for your support. We know Pride might not be for everyone, but you can say that about every event the city puts on. Know that the Belmont community wants this and more diverse events, and we're going to do it anyway. We would love to have you on board next time so you can see what Pride really means to Belmont and the people you represent. Thanks for your time, and thanks to all those in our community who supported Pride for the first time this year.
Our next speaker is Molly Halbrooks.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Molly Halbrooks. You got it right. I am a resident of Belmont, a small business owner, and a mom of 2 young children. I own Restore Counseling and Therapy here in town. It's a private counseling practice. My kids go to First Presbyterian Day School. They'll attend Belmont Public Schools when they're old enough. They're 4 and 2 right now. We shop locally. We play in the parks. We go to community events. We go to the farmers markets. My son loves Touch a Truck. We go to Riverfest, and now we got to go to Pride. We love this town, and we want to see it continue to grow into a place that is safe, welcoming, and affirming for everyone. I'm here tonight to express my strong support for Pride and for inclusive events like it being supported by the city moving forward. I understand that everyone in our community doesn't agree about how Pride should be celebrated, but I hope that we can agree on this, that every person deserves to feel safe, valued, and welcome in the place that they call home. Supporting Pride is about affirming the dignity and humanity of LGBTQIA individuals, many of whom live, work, worship, and raise families right here in Belmont. therapist, I see firsthand the harm that's caused when people are made to feel like they don't belong. As a parent, I want my kids to grow up in a town that leads with empathy and inclusion and courage, even when it's not easy. We chose to raise our family here because we believe in this community. We believe Belmont can be a place where all families feel safe and feel like they have a home. And when the city supports Pride, it sends a message that Belmont is a place where everyone matters. Leadership sets the tone. You all set the tone. And the tone that we now set will shape how people experience this town for years to come. I hope that next year Belmont can be a city that not only permits, but proudly supports Pride. I believe it's not just the right thing to do, but it's part of building a vibrant and healthy community. And in this moment, we have the opportunity to show what kind of place Belmont is becoming. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our community.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Talia Simmons? Simon? What was that?
Simon.
Simons, okay. Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name's Talia Simons. I am representing in downtown as a business, which is Station. We participated in the Pride event. I wanted to just share that it was really a great day. The spirits were high with everybody. There was only positive feedback. Again, echoing Michelle, there was no drama or only just love and inclusivity. And just as a business owner, we always want to make sure that our patrons always feel safe and included. We certainly never want to make anyone feel anything less than. When I think about other bar crawls that have been going on downtown, like the St. Paddy's Day bar crawl, which was at, maybe, I don't know if it was this year, but in past years it has been a city supported event. I can tell you that was a much less happy event with the type of drama that would happen during those type of events. So it seems like sometimes the city maybe does support, maybe sometimes they don't. It's not clear, when and why, but I think that businesses can do with all the support they can downtown. I think that, anytime we can have an event where we're bringing in business and bringing in new people to the area and getting a chance for them to see Belmont and to experience the restaurants and the bars, I think is for me, it's a no-brainer. We could do with all the help we can get right now. I think all businesses, all restaurants and bars in downtown Belmont could probably agree with that. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our final public speaker is Jonathan Catherman.
Yes. Hello, I'm Jonathan Catherman from Primal Brewery. I'm the Chief Development Officer, and I don't have long remarks. I just want to pay compliment to the Pride organizers. I've worked in a lot of events. I'm a sociologist and recently an entrepreneur. And in the events I've worked nationally, this is one of the best organized groups I've worked with. They often came to me with my concerns or interests before I even had time to ask the question. So compliments to them. As for business, we had two problems during the Pride event. One, my air conditioning couldn't keep up. And two, I didn't have enough staff. We had that many people in our building, doors open and close, open and close, open and close, and not one person complained. Not behind my bar, not with the customers. They just had a wonderful time. And as many people that came in from out of town, I was really surprised at. Congratulations. They love Belmont, and they really enjoyed time spent at Primal Brewery and just being able to celebrate. I have a son who's part of the community, not the Belmont community, but he is looking to move here. And as part of the LGBTQ community, I recommended that he move to Belmont. So I want him to be closer to me at home, but this would be a good place for him to live. So one, thank you very much for what you do to develop the community, make it safe. Thank you very much for the organizers of the Pride event, for everything they did to open it to all who work both close as family and near and far away, from tourists in Charlotte to Virginia. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward to next year.
Thank you. That was the last speaker and concludes public comment. The next item on the agenda is C2, Economic Development Project Dove, public hearing and resolution for the Level 4 incentive grant. This time I entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Alex, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Miles, did you want to introduce this?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. This economic development project titled Project Dove was brought to the city staff by Donnie Hicks, who is here in attendance.
Why don't, maybe we should just hold on, is this on?
Yeah,
people
later.
filing those? Just wait, just a minute. All right.
Why doesn't it?
Feel free to resume.
As I was saying, this is a project that was titled Project Dove by the Gaston County Economic Development Commission. And Donnie Hicks is here with us tonight. This is a matching grant that matches Gaston County's Level 4 incentive grant. Project Dove is a total investment of approximately $80 million to establish a manufacturing facility in Gaston County. They plan to invest $12 million to customize and upfit an existing building in the Oaks Business Park and purchase over $68 million in machinery and equipment. They anticipate creating 386 new jobs with an annual average salary of $60,211, which exceeds the per-year annual salary in Gaston County. And so the Gaston County Board of Commissioners approved this Level 4 incentive grant on June 24th, 2025. And pursuant to general statute, a public hearing is required, which we did provide the legal notice in the Gaston Gazette. So I asked Donnie Hicks to come to the podium if you all have any further questions regarding this project.
Thank you, Miles. Welcome, Donnie. Any questions for Donnie about the project or the incentive grants proposed?
Just a couple of points and maybe a question for you, Donnie. I know we spoke last week about this. Looking at the table that you provided, obviously with machinery and equipment, there's a depreciation factor there,
Yeah.
right? But it looks like that you're holding the value of the M&E constant, but you're showing declining tax on the M&E. There's some sort of factor built in there.
Yeah, so
Depreciation.
and the depreciation's including the formula in that sale.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, thank you for bringing this to us. I mean, I think it's an exciting opportunity. You're talking about 386 jobs. I'm not sure what the average county wage is. We're looking at 60. Yeah.
In those 386 jobs, they'll be in Belmont physical, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I mean,
Full-time jobs?
Yes.
I know there's been some discussion, and we kind of talked about this, about, weighing the cost of services versus the revenue that would be derived after the incentive is applied. I know there was a post last week that I'd spent some time studying with some analysis that was done on the county, and I think after looking through it, I think it wasn't exactly kind of what we're talking about here. It was analysis of the county, not a specific project, but sort of an analysis, an evaluation of the cost of services versus the revenue generated from the taxes on this, in this particular county versus the local municipality like we're talking about here. I mean, for me, this is making use of a dormant asset that, we're looking at $12 million of upfits and $68 million of additional investment in machinery and equipment, 386 new jobs. Obviously, some portion of that's probably not going to be local. I mean, I think that's realistic. I think that that's not all going to be local hires, but I think that's just kind of the nature of where we are, in the proximity to Charlotte, Mecklenburg. But for me, this is a net gain for Belmont and Gaston County.
look, I work in manufacturing, and I can tell you that every plant that we've opened up in the United States, tax incentives. I mean, that's how you get infrastructure, that's how you get manufacturing into your municipalities. And what they do is they honestly, a la carte, we look at it from which municipality's giving us what, and then you take what's the most advantageous to you. manufacturing in the United States is extremely difficult to keep up with the profit margins that other foreign companies are doing. So I think this is a no-brainer for us. We've asked for manufacturing to come to Belmont. This is manufacturing coming to Belmont. It's going to give us a lot of good new jobs. And particularly, again, I don't want to call it just the pay to play, but at the end of the day, it's they're benefiting and they're investing in our community. This isn't for a 3 or 4 year deal. I mean, this type of figures, they're going to be here in perpetuity for a long time. So, and that's something that's going to be a residual income and a residual benefit to our area. So, I think it's a good proposal.
Thank you,
The
Alex.
other point to make there, I think too, I appreciate the analysis of not just the revenue side of it, but what are the costs of services? Here we've got a structure that's already there. It's already got service from police and fire. It's already got water and sewer. It's already got curb and gutter. It's not a new structure. So, from that standpoint, I think it is going to be a net gainer, especially once the 10 years, is up and we're getting 100% of that revenue from that point forward.
Where do you go to lunch? Where do you go to buy? You're in Belmont, right? So, helps our economy.
I have just a few questions. So I know, we know how this works with Project Dove or Project Tundra or whatever, and so you can't
Where's
disclose.
Is that what you're talking
Yes, where is
That's a good one.
the national, is this,
It's farm, a foreign firm, but it's not Chinese.
oh,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the clarification.
all right. Can we be any more specific than
More
that?
specific on that, I mean,
It's from a country that's friendly to the U.S.
Well, that's an ever diminishing. And what specifically are they going to manufacture if you're at liberty?
So it's in the pharma business, it's more of the generic product manufacturing. They're not making the actual pharmaceutical piece, but they're making carriers for pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
do they already currently have a footprint in the United States?
They need a larger footprint in the United States. They've been in business for 60 years, so they do supply to the U.S. already, but they need a much larger footprint here to be able to supply this product. They can't, regardless of tariffs or whatever, they need to be closer to the manufacturing facilities. The supply chain is just too far away.
Any hazardous materials?
And obviously, I understand we're competing with another location, so this is not all etched in stone, is that correct?
Absolutely correct. There are at least 4 sites left in North Carolina. There's some in Georgia, and we think there's at least 1 or 2 in South Carolina. Some of those are lower cost options, not because of the incentives, but because the building's older and it's cheaper. So this is a newer building, it's going to be more expensive to be in it. So it is not a guarantee. The state of North Carolina has already offered incentives to them. And as part of that process, we're required to send them a letter saying this is what we anticipate doing on our side. So that goes into their consideration of what the state would offer them. And they're not looking for a specific ratio or some kind of match. But if you send them a letter saying we're not going to do anything, good luck, do whatever, you're going to get a different number. So we do say it'll take a public vote, but we would anticipate offering them a level 4 grant from these locations.
And I guess to Alex's point then, the other areas that we're competing with, I have a feeling they might be offering them.
I know a couple of places that are doing
Yes.
this.
And even were this location fortunate enough to be selected, we'd still have to negotiate an economic development agreement separate and apart.
So this would be the front end of it, and we have a 3-party economic development agreement. Generally, most of the municipalities work with us to do this, which would include the company, the county, and the municipality. Then we execute a single agreement that's approved by your legal people. And in that way, there aren't 2 different documents floating around subject to interpretation, time, and issue. So
Yes.
generally, it's a 3-party agreement.
And I think you mentioned it's the state and the county have already approved the incentives.
Yes, sir, they have.
Okay. And staff,
Which is a vetting process within itself.
Yes, it
Both of
is.
those entities.
and staff recommends approval, Miles.
Yes, sir.
By the way, just out of curiosity, other counties around the state that may be in consideration for this too, is the grant the same from one county to another? Or is
It varies, but it's not going to be 50% variance.
Yeah.
It also depends on what the building looks like. So the building in Belmont is not incentivized. So the building already pays $156,000 a year in taxes. So they're paying a couple $1,000 a week as is. So this will be on top of that. If someone were to build a new building in a location, it might be incentivized so that could change the number some. But I think when you look at the competitiveness we have, we're a Tier 2 county, so they get to keep a larger portion of their state tax incentive. And if they went to a 3, like Mecklenburg County, Wake County, Durham, you have to give them more of that incentive back to the utility fund. So that helps make us more competitive. Our numbers, we feel like, give us as much competitiveness as we probably need.
Y'all been pretty busy, pretty active with a lot of manufacturing being interested in our area.
We have.
It's exciting, really exciting.
Any other questions then for Donnie? There are no folks signed up for public comment for this hearing, so all else being equal, I would entertain the motion to come out of the public hearing.
Motion to come out of public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Alex, seconded by Jason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I think at this time, and I will caveat this, I think I made maybe one or two, three spelling and grammar corrections. I think changing quality to qualify and maybe a comma. But subject to that, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution in support of the level 4 incentive grant.
I would like to make that motion.
Motion made by Alex, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Is that sufficient for us?
Just maybe one additional comment too, because I know this council and previous councils, when we think about that area, you know, it's been particularly defined by not just this council, but previous ones, that we want to move away from the distribution centers and the high trucking and the high traffic capacity, and move to manufacturing, get jobs generated in our area. Again, I think this is moving in the right direction to do such, and activate manufacturing again in our area. And that was the foundation of our city, and it's cool to see this stuff coming back, so.
Very good point. Good point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well done. That concludes item C2. Moving on to item C3, public hearing for TA 2025-02, removal of ABC package store / beer and wine exclusive discount store use from list of permitted commercial uses within the highway commercial HC district. And so we've got a public hearing. I will entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Motion made by Alex, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are in public hearing, and here to present on behalf of the staff is Rachel Grogan.
All right, thank you all for being here tonight. So this is a text amendment to classify ABC stores as retail commercial. That's it, its most sort of boiled down definition. So the applicant is Belmont ABC store. And in order to make this change, the applicant is requesting that ABC package store be removed from highway commercial permitted uses. And this text amendment would allow that use to be classified as retail commercial, and therefore permitted to be able to be located anywhere that retail commercial is permitted. So a little bit of background information. So the code specifically calls out ABC package store / beer and wine exclusive discount store as a permitted use within HC. This is the only place currently in the code where this use is referenced. So that means that it's only permitted in HC. We took this item to planning board last month and received their recommendation. So here's what the current regulation says, and so I've called out, commercial is one of the permitted uses, and you can see it highlighted there, that particular use. And then some additional changes that we are proposing are providing 2 new definitions to Chapter 2. So creating an actual ABC store definition, and then a separate definition for beer and wine store. And then removal of ABC package store from HC while leaving beer and wine store as a permitted use within that zone. So, we did a bit of analysis, so in addition to, receiving feedback from the board, we looked at a few of our peer communities, and we found that the majority of, comparable cities classify ABC stores as retail. So basically what that means is that what is proposed and what's in front of y'all tonight is in line with how others regulate this use. In addition, the state provides considerable oversight, so staff did not believe that any additional regulations were needed, and the same was true for Planning and Zoning Board as well. So implications, this is where ABC stores could be permitted if this code is adopted. So these are all the different designations in which this use could be permitted. And then beer and wine stores would stay in highway commercial specifically. Comprehensive plan consistency, so staff found that it was, this proposal is consistent with goal number 1, land use, which is to encourage encourage tax base and mix of uses that promote choice in, and I guess the one that is most relevant would be shopping. And then goal number 2 for economy, which is a vibrant economy with a diversified tax base. So like I indicated earlier, staff presented to planning board last month. The board recommended 5-1 to approve. The board determined that the tax amendment is reasonable and is in the public interest. And they also determined that it is consistent with those 2 areas of the comprehensive plan.
What was the rationale behind the 1 no vote?
The opposition vote, you remember?
I think he wanted us to explore a little bit more as it relates to beer and wine retail. So he had no opposition to creating the 2 definitions. He had no opposition to it being permitted in those other designations, but he just had wanted staff to explore that a bit more.
Does the state differentiate between?
Yes.
Were you, sorry with your presentation, or?
Oh, almost. I wasn't sure if we were,
Yes.
if we were going with any more questions.
That's all right. No, that's fine.
Anyway, so, motion 2, y'all have 3 different options in front of you: approve as presented, approve as modified, or disapprove. And then the 2 findings that y'all are required to make. This concludes my presentation. If y'all have any questions for me, the applicant is here from Belmont ABC and could probably answer any questions that y'all may have about that.
Any additional questions for Rachel?
I do have a question. Maybe it's just a thought. Downtown district.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, 2 pieces. Downtown district, and we've done this, and I've read it in the code before. There's certain entities that do this. Distance to a church or school. Doesn't have to just be a church or a school. Is there language that's common in other municipalities that incorporate such? So, example, and it's tough because then you got South Point High School, because I know we're one of the identified. I'm talking about if it is right smack next to the school, it would be something that I would find potentially
Understood, but I don't think there's been any definitive location pinpointed for this
That's
new and
Maybe
it should
not
just
for us, but I would
Yeah.
say I've heard of that in other municipalities possibly.
yes. I mean, I would also query the definition of right smack dab next to. But is that a legal term of art?
You gotta get a yes,
So the forest be determined. Well, yes. So just for public Well, I'll let Bruce answer the question.
Well, I want to say that, ABC regulates that sort of thing. It's not something, unless that's something that y'all want to explore.
Well, we probably need to know what the ABC regulations are. I will accept, as you set forth in your presentation, that, given the nature of an ABC store, there are going to be regulations on this coming from the state that probably go beyond anything that we have in our land development code, but, I just
Before
don't
we
know.
make a decision on it, it'd be nice to know what those are.
I think, I'm not trying to stall this, I think it needs to be done, so they can expand and do other options. I just want to make sure that we're not opening ourselves to additional liability. And I don't know personally for me, I don't know y'all's thought, I don't know how comfortable I would be in the downtown district. Because I think of our Main Street, East Catawba Street, I don't know if that's the right place for it. Anywhere else, fine, other than next to a school or something like that.
Yes, I see our Pine Director. Careful now. Very, very nimble. So would that be some, because here's what I get that, but the issue is if we define it as retail commercial, then it's allowed in any district that allows retail commercial. So you'd have to amend downtown district to put something in there to specifically exclude it.
How does Lowell, if we go back to the slide, Lowell has it explicitly called it out in its unique zoning, I thought. ABC store has its own classification. Is that not a route that we could do as opposed to just putting it as retail and then we designate what areas or districts it's allowed in?
I don't know how Lowell structures their zoning, so I
Can you
can't.
not create a special classification for ABC stores?
Sure, so you actually already have a special classification for ABC stores. Right now, it's lumped in with your beer and wine discount exclusive stores. So right now, it's one use with a slash in between there. So the proposal is to define it the same as regular retail commercial, knowing that there's limited places it would locate realistically with it having to be licensed by the state of North Carolina. Unlike some other commercial retail businesses that could open multiple locations all over everywhere because there's competing entities, right? So it's a little bit different. Yes, it could be done that way, and you could then go into each individual district and separately list it as ABC store / exclusive beer and wine store. What we were looking to do was propose it with a framework that was as incremental as possible in nature, understanding where we currently are with 160D and making larger modifications to the code that would be harder to roll back later once we make them. So once you start introducing it as allowable in other districts, that particular strategy of listing ABC store in each of the zones where you all have comfort with them is certainly an option. It's not how the current amendment is framed, but it is certainly an option so that you could structure it more similarly to Lowell if that's your desire. But it would then change we would need to look at how the rest of the red line is framed to make sure that we're consistent in how it's carried forward.
I'll question, so I'm assuming if this is defined, ABC store is not going to be defined in the code, and if it's retail commercial, it's allowed in certain districts. Is there a potential then that an ABC store could go in by right in such zoning districts, or is it something that would always come to us so that if we pass this amendment and then any proposed ABC store would come to us, and if council found it inappropriate in the location proposed, it would have the ability to just vote against such a proposal?
Sure, so I would actually defer to the applicant when it comes to this because I'm not sure what the state requirements are in terms of getting the city's buy-in for the location of a new store. From a zoning perspective, if you allow it, it would be allowed anywhere where retail is allowed by right, or anywhere where retail is allowed conditionally. It would go the same pathway. Where you might see this presented is if one of the proposed locations is under a conditional zoning, if that conditional zoning already allows retail commercial, then this use would automatically be allowed in that location without having to amend the conditional zoning.
Right.
If you more similarly to Lowell, and listed ABC store as an allowable use district by district. If it wasn't included in an original conditional zoning, it would then require a modification or an amendment to that zoning set of standards.
To Tiffany's earlier point, because it's state run, you can't just put one anywhere. If I remember right, I think there's like a 2-mile radius or something, that I might be getting that wrong, but there's like a radius, you can't put one next to another ABC store.
Well, do we have the applicant? Is it?
Applicant is here.
Yes.
So I would assume if that's in play, you
Yes.
can't just put one anywhere you want.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not the state ABC commission.
Yes,
A couple of comments about what is happening and to your questions. The state ABC commission license and approval requirements that I have seen are more focused on distribution of stores and, if you will, the economics of that store, to make sure that they will be successful and profitable.
Yes.
I don't know, and the general manager's here, Bill, why don't you come up? Oh, good. I have not heard one being right next to a school.
I believe that the term was smack dab. Yeah.
You know, the comment I'd make is, there's two key things here. Number one, because it is controlled by the state, and it's also was essentially appointed, the board is appointed by the city council, you do have effective control. There's only gonna be one more store here, so, as long as it remains state controlled, which to our knowledge, there's rumblings every year, but this is years in the making before it would be privatized. So effectively, we're talking about looking at one additional store, which you've been made aware of. We are communicating now with Miles on a regular basis, that we've been doing this for a couple of years, looking at a second store. And it is impossible right in the highway commercial district. To go back to the other question, do you know of another one that, where the ABC Commission looks at other, churches and schools? Not directly, right? I have read, we have a rule book about that thick, and it actually says 50 feet. So that's pretty close.
Smack dab is 50.
There we go, there's definitely.
All right.
As far as, a proximity, we're 1.9 miles away from the Cramerton store next to Food Line. So, I would think we would be at least, 1.5 to 2 miles away, would be a guess at it. As far as Lowell, I guess they could eventually have an ABC store, but they wouldn't have their own ABC store. They would be under Gastonia's rule, because they don't allow, believe it or not, one-store boards like we have. That ended about 3 years ago. So there will never be a small town that goes in and gets their own ABC store. They would be under a larger, like in our case, if we were trying to do this now, we would be under Gastonia's rule. So those are just a few of my tidbits.
So, one other thing, alcohol is sold at Belmont Town Center already,
Yes.
right? At the Harris Teeter. So, part of this is, we're gonna have better control with a state-run entity versus a grocery store where, teenagers are working, they're employed, that kind of stuff. So, to allay any concerns, I think it's gonna have much more control than either beer and wine or other things that could be, like the vape stores, I think unfortunately are now currently retail, right? So there is controls in place. There's only gonna be one more as at most. So I would suggest to the council, unless you're worried about privatized, years out into the future, that we don't have to, and I've suggested this to the planning and zoning group, we're looking at this for a one-time event.
I can
appreciate that. I don't doubt that there's distribution rules in terms of competition between stores, and, you know, perhaps for the next 10, 12, 15 years, maybe the state says, no, there's not gonna be but one more store in Belmont, but if we keep growing like we are, who knows? And we, you know, the land development code, even though you can amend it, is about the most amended, it's about the most permanent thing we have. So when we're talking about changes to it, we're looking, you know.
I think the bigger concern is the zoning was, you know, beer and wine.
Right.
Other, if you will, package stores.
Right.
And once we separate them, we pulled the string on a sweater, is a concern there.
Yeah, I'm like you, I mean, I wanna see you guys continue to grow, and obviously the city benefits from that. But I do have some of the same concerns about the downtown district, you know, schools, churches, proximity to those. So, you know, if there was a way that we could come to an agreement on, you know, something that's mutually beneficial, you know.
I know, I mean, we're in partnership with this. I know two identified locations that have been brought up to me by previous board chairs is Harris Teeter area, right across from Southwood Road. I mean, I agree, I mean, it's in that general vicinity, it's an issue. Or down in the McLean area potentially, where the future retail. I mean, are you at liberty to say that those are still the two locations you're looking at? Because, again, the downtown corridor is something that kind of throws me off.
Look, to be clear, it's public, we've had public meetings that aren't attended.
Well, they're in the back room of the store.
We would let them in.
You let me in once.
I just got countersigned today, a letter of intent to negotiate a lease at the town center.
Yeah.
And why not McLean? You know, we actually engaged a consultant to look. The recommendation was basically to stay in the Wilkinson area. There's not land. A lot of that is owned by the Southern Benedictine Society, not going to lease to an ABC store. The other part is we're maximizing revenue for the city, being on Wilkinson and near the highway. The town center location would really maximize convenience for the city of Belmont residents. There's, as you are very aware, right, 3,000 or 4,000 new doors going in since we started this down lower in Belmont, or more. And then one last comment is the closer you get to South Carolina, the less effective and probably not approved by the state.
Because there's one right across down there.
Exactly. Well, everywhere is because it's not state controlled.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, so is the primary concern going to be the downtown district?
And proximity to
Is the proximity, yeah.
the schools, churches, too.
Mhm.
So you guys have an issue with it being across the street from Southwood?
Do you have an issue with Harris Teeter?
If it was further down South Point Road?
Well, you know, this is a tough one, Parks, because, you know, when you zone something, you're supposed to zone, you know, anything, it's across the board, it's not supposed to be tailored to one property, but obviously this is sort of a unique situation. Well, we seem to be, I'm struggling here, Parks, with how to perhaps address some of these concerns within the framework of the proposed amendment. I mean, to me, one thing would be you can define it as retail commercial and then exclude it from downtown district. It sounds like that addresses some of the issues. In terms of proximity to a church or school, what's your thoughts on that? I'm just sort of, I don't know how to sort of delve into that. Oh, sorry.
require something to be sent back for further work because, you know, you're automatically eliminating the site they want to be approved. If you go that route about schools. So, I think that council would have to get comfortable with, that site being okay.
I see your point about the school, and I see your point too. You're selling beer and wine at Harris Teeter. There's stuff that walks out there in book bags. They do it.
The security in these ABC
Oh, I know,
stores
yeah.
is immensely.
You have an officer, you usually have an officer at the door.
On the weekends, we have an officer at the door, but they're much, I'll say, more highly trained.
Right, right. So, I mean, optically, I get it, but from a control standpoint, I wouldn't have the same concern that I, would about, say, the Harris Teeter, but I understand that's an ideal location for a lot of reasons.
Only other comment I'd make, because there was a lot of discussion about this at the board level. There are other businesses that are put into retail today that have, I'll use adult content type of things, primarily tobacco and vape. And
Oh, would you, were
Yes.
Yeah.
so,
All right. Any further questions for staff of the ABC board? All right, I just had one question.
I would like a little more color, perhaps not tonight, at some point, on what are the state stipulations? I mean, is it simply a matter of radius between stores, or are there other?
We have to send a package. It's not an instant guarantee approval. They have said no to some stores and boards, so it's just something that you submit.
So it's subjective, subjective kind of case by case, or there's not like a standard?
it's gonna be a 20-page, package, and they have 90 days to approve it. A lot of, financial, distance.
But surely there's some sort of guidelines you have to meet to even submit a proposal.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's maybe what we're looking for, is what are the parameters that you have? Can't be here, can be here,
Sounds like it meets the parameters to the state, right? Is that how I understand it?
From a location standpoint, we believe so.
Yeah.
There is not an explicit half-mile or 1 mile or 3 mile radius. It is something that they would approve. Again, goes mostly back to the financials. A suggestion here, since we were formed by the city council, we can go through this isn't zoning, but it is the concern on specific location. We could go through the approval process and simply say that the city council needs to approve the final location. This is external to zoning.
All right, I mean, parks, I think that's.
That doesn't address the zoning matter.
Yeah.
That is,
Because it's practical.
they're offering to do that.
Did I hear Tiffany say that if we approve the tax amendment, that as written, that if it's now in retail commercial, it could be by right?
Well, I think that would depend ultimately if it were ever privatized. Is that correct? Right, as it stands now, because of the state involvement, I don't think it would necessarily be by right. But if ABC were ever, has been mentioned as rumblings, if it were ever privatized, so that just,
That zoning would be grandfathered in, would it not?
So the definition of ABC as proposed includes it being run by the ABC board. So if it was privatized, we would need to update the definition in order to allow it to be classified differently, because it would no longer meet the definition as proposed in the text before you. So when we say by right, we just mean, it doesn't mean they can just do it without notifying us. They would still need to come and get a zoning permit for an upfit, a change of use perhaps, if wherever they decided to locate wasn't already retail commercial, and make sure it fits within all of our zoning regulations. if there was any screening or signage size limitations, things like that that are already controlled at the zone level. So highway commercial has different signage regulations. For instance, they'll allow for increased visibility to that site than would be allowable in a traditional neighborhood development or in other areas that would allow for retail. So because we are a form-based code, we do have different regulations on the different zones for what the exterior can look like. And then we also have for different uses, like different parking and things like that. So by classifying it as retail, it allows us to just understand how to process that through the code, if that's what you guys determine makes the most sense based on the information you hear tonight. But we understand there are different perspectives that you can take. There were several different ideas floated for conversation purposes with the Planning and Zoning Board to understand this issue. And the reason it's proposed with us keeping it as streamlined as possible with just changing and striking out ABC Board, but keeping the beer and wine exclusive discount stores within HC is specifically because of the privatization that's allowable within those other ones. And it's not to say that we couldn't consider further refining that later. I think that was one of the ideas floated by Planning and Zoning is, why is that use treated differently? Does it need to be? Maybe yes, maybe no. And one of the conversations was we could include additional regulations within Chapter 6 like we do for some uses, but they felt like by keeping it streamlined to just removing ABC stores, not all the rest of them, and because of all the other regulations in place for ABC stores, the planning board didn't feel like additional regulations were necessarily needed in Chapter 6. But that is a spot that we could look at. The one thing we'd want to check on when we do additional regulations is because of that most recent regulation in 160D that limits, we cannot create any regulations that would make the current ABC store considered to be non-conforming. So we just need to be mindful in how we look at that and how we approach that and what's actually able to be crafted.
But could we not just force ABC in its entirety conditional? Because that's expanding more.
You
to
cannot,
what they
because it's
could-
allowed by right in HC.
But not in any other area, right?
That's correct.
That's why we're amending the,
Well, no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is we're allowing it to be in more areas than just highway commercial by forcing it to be conditional.
You
So we're actually
could.
expanding the zoning of it, not limiting it.
You could, if you felt that conditional zoning would be the right avenue to do that. Or we could outline the specific parameters so that, it's more predictable for the applicant going in. So it just depends on what exactly would be needed. Conditional zoning does add both time and expense to the applicant, but if that's the level of discretion needed, it's certainly an option. Special use permit is also an option that allows for council discretion, or setting those parameters in Chapter 6 could perhaps provide some comfort. But again, the way it's crafted right now is pretty narrowed to just be for the ABC stores as regulated by an ABC board. So it would not allow for a privatized model to go in all of the retail commercial areas.
okay. The only last question I had is a simple one. You presented the two definitions of ABC store and I think beer/wine exclusive. I'm assuming those definitions would be inserted in the appropriate place in Article 2 alphabetically.
Yes.
Okay, because they were just there in a vacuum.
Yes, those would be independent standalone, inserted alphabetically.
All right. Well, any questions additionally for ABC board staff or planning staff?
Are you looking to rent or build?
If you know a place land we could buy, we'd love it. I think it benefits the city long term, but at the end of the day, we're an operating business. General pro forma, conservatively, we generate another $150,000 to $300,000 a year annually for the city.
On the first store.
Oh, I'm sorry, please. Yes, please.
Parks, it sounds like perhaps there needs to be additional discussion about the best way to frame this. If we go out of public hearing, would we then be able to call up, all right, so I think we should stay in public hearing. All right, so we've talked, we've asked some questions, so I guess my query for the group is if there's something we don't like about the way it is proposed to us, how would we like to change it, and then we can see how that can be accomplished. We can ask Tiffany or Rachel, like, if that can be done. Is it something that can be done easily tonight, or is it something that then we'd have to, I guess, continue the hearing and come back? But if there are issues with what is currently being proposed, what would resolve those issues to council members' satisfaction?
I think an easy one, if I may, would be the downtown district. I think we just remove that allowable to that area. I would assume that that's just striking that particular district. It's not. Can you maybe elaborate to what would be additional to that then? Or it's what you already recommended by then going into downtown districts and then removing.
Right, so it would be keeping ABC stores still defined as a separate and distinct use instead of classifying it as retail commercial. So that means then we would need to amend the allowable uses in each zoning district to specifically list ABC store. And so we would need to know which districts and which ones to specifically list ABC store within. It would also mean that if it was proposed in an area like Belmont Town Center that's under an active conditional zoning, that conditional zoning would need to then be amended as well. So it's not to say it can't be done, but it is text that is, from my perspective, above and beyond what feels easy to manipulate to present to you tonight for adoption.
I wouldn't necessarily be, I mean, I know it's more time consuming, it's more costly, but I wouldn't be opposed to that approach, carving out a separate classification, and then you insert that classification into the different zoning districts where there are conditional zoning that would be permitted, right? Is that what you're?
It would not. It would mean any conditional zoning would automatically need to be amended. We would need to understand the zoning designations you all would like to see it in, and then whether or not you're comfortable in each zoning designation with it being by right or needing an additional level of discretionary approval.
Again, I think it's just removing the downtown district. Maybe I'm oversimplifying.
Well, but it can't really be done like that, because if you define it as retail commercial.
I get that,
yeah.
but I in my mind is keep it separate, decouple it from what this wine and beer privatized entity is. Create ABC as its own type of entity in our classification for zoning, and then put it in all the districts except for downtown.
Conditional.
Well, I mean, I don't think you want to put it in like general residential.
Or no, not all, but what was specified
Yes,
on the rest of the proposal is what I'm saying.
And we're
Conditionally, right?
Yeah.
So in every other one but highway commercial, because it's allowable by right in highway commercial, so in every other one, conditional zoning or special use permit. The reason I ask is I'll need to double check. There are some limitations into the size of a parcel and minimum requirements when we go conditional zoning. So depending on the zoning designation, not every single parcel in that zone is eligible for your review under conditional zoning. If it's a one-off site, that might not be an eligible avenue, so that would disallow it from consideration by the applicant.
But at one point, we had conditional zoning attached to multifamily. Any
Sure.
multifamily triggered a conditional zoning. How can we not take any ABC store by its own classification and trigger a conditional zoning?
You absolutely can. I'm saying that there are certain sites that would then automatically be disqualified because they're too small. So if somebody wanted to do it, they would have to do conditional zoning, and then if conditional zoning was not allowable based on the size of the parcel, that option would be eliminated from consideration.
Okay.
Do you know what that size is?
It is by zone, so there's a chart. There are certain zones, like neighborhood center commercial, that don't have a size restriction, right? So those, even the smallest of sites could come before you for conditional zoning. But there are other sites that do require more land area. I believe that traditional neighborhood development is one of those. That being said, if you wanted it framed up to say, well, it either needs to have a special use permit or conditional zoning, where we do have some of that language in the code for other types of things. Both of those would come before you, and there are no size restrictions on requesting a special use permit.
All right, so, reaction, thoughts on that, like where are we? As much fun as this is,
No, I don't disagree.
Yes.
I don't think it should go down to special use permit. I mean, I think that you are opening up Pandora's box by putting it down there. So I think the best route is, again, in my opinion, is pushing it towards this conditional route and then trying to remove it from the downtown district, but allow all the other districts would be my suggestion moving forward for it.
and Tiffany, that's not something that could be done like on the fly tonight, is it?
I would not feel comfortable because of the amount of red lines that we just don't have those sections to be able to even present the red lines to you for full transparency of the public, for awareness of what's being requested, since that's different.
And if we went that route, it sounds like you would also need direction from us maybe about which district we would want to include that classification in.
That's correct. I've heard one proposal that says everything
Not
as
everything, but highway.
proposed,
It would be, we would.
Not everything.
just the
everything
ones
is-
that were listed, but minus the downtown district. So anything that already allows for
Yes.
retail, commercial, except for downtown district is what I've currently heard proposed.
It would still be, but it would still be conditional.
There you go.
Oh, it's implication.
It's a whole different crowd than who goes into Harris Theater. I mean, I'm not being judgmental, I've been in and out of an ABC store many times, but I just think that, you know, for justification for a grocery store, walking in a grocery store, you know, it's a bunch of different things. Walking into a liquor store, you have to be 21 years old, right? 21 to enter into it, and it's solely for alcohol. So I just don't know that it's a great idea to have it across from the high school.
Well, yes, that's a separate question from, the zoning aspect of it. Ultimately that it sounds very likely where it might be, but we're dealing with zones where it can be permitted wherever.
I understand that, I just wanna be crystal clear that if I'm agreeing to something, that I'm understanding that I'm not agreeing to that.
All
in
right,
that location.
well, let's see what we're potentially agreeing to. So, all right, so Alex has made a proposal. What do you all think of Alex's, and perhaps you need to repeat it, I don't know.
Again, I mean, I think in my mind, how it's working, and I guess if it's gotta come back, it's gotta come back. But essentially, in today's world, the ABC and the wine and beers, it's coupled together, right? Decouple it, continue to do that, put ABC as its own classification in regards to zoning, as its own definition, and then put in which districts, other than the downtown district, that the other ones are fine, that it's allowable in, but allowable by conditional use. That is what my proposal and suggestion is.
Traditional neighborhood development, can you define that or maybe give us an example or two?
Sure, so an example is Belmont Town Center,
Okay.
where there is a neighborhood, but there's also a commercial core. So in traditional neighborhood development zones, there are specific percentages of each use that have to be included in a master plan, site plan proposal. So Laurel Walk was a part of Belmont Town Center and a part of all of that. So there's some residential, and then there's some commercial, that's one example. Another example is over in Eagle Park, there's more civic use as opposed to commercial over there, so.
You mean like with the school?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, so they can look different, but it's a master plan site that has the ability for more pedestrian access between the residential and the civic and or retail commercial uses.
And under Alex's suggestion, even if we were to pick and choose the districts that we wanted to allow it to be permitted in, it would still be conditional the way that it's being proposed, is that right?
That is my understanding, yes, except for in highway commercial, because it is by
Right.
right now, and we have to maintain that.
Right. So we would have more oversight on, where they could go. Other things as well.
So, reactions from others as to Alex's proposal?
Just with ABC stores though, there's a lot more state regulations. They can't just put one in across from Harris Cedars and 2 years later put one in downtown. But that's just not gonna work. The state's not gonna approve that, so just keep that in mind.
Can I help you?
Sorry, we were looking at the different size requirements, I apologize,
Okay.
of the parcels.
So when you say conditional, that means that if they were to, their desires to be in, correct. So we have control to say no, if that's somewhere.
Well, it would have to
see
come
that.
to council.
Right.
Go through planning board and then to council.
To see if there was an appetite for that. So
That
we
would
would
be a valid reason for it to be denied, right?
Well, I mean, we can, you can't be arbitrary and capricious, but if it's conditional zoning, you can deny it for a lot of different reasons.
Well, I'm just making this clear for the people that are watching, because this is really confusing. Making it like, always say,
Only
making
because
sure
we're
it's
making
for
it
the
so,
citizens,
but,
because, we are doing this for the
Well, Jim,
citizens, not
give
the
us your
city's
input.
dollars.
I mean, my input is, I think it's, the text, I understand y'all's concerns. I think the text amendment is simple and streamlined, and I think there's additional oversight and regulation from the state. I would be willing to approve as presented tonight. I understand the concerns, and I don't think that seems to be the will of the majority. So from what I'm hearing, and what Alex is proposing, that seems like it has the support in its nascent form of the majority of council. So to me, the thing to do would be to move to continue the public hearing. So until hopefully next month, although it sounds like we will have to have some input. Maybe that could be done at the workshop, like we could add that as, or we don't like that.
So we're having one item on the.
Right, yes. But it sounds like, from what Alex is proposing, that we would have to have some input into what zones we want it to be in. So between what time, like how would that be done if we want to continue this next meeting? Like between then and now, or between now and then, how would we be able to provide this insight, which it appears as though we want to provide in terms of which zones it would be permitted in?
So what we could do is, it sounds like there's a request for amended redline text documents. We could upload those proposed amendments into the agenda packet for your review and consideration prior to the meeting. Based on if the council is agreeable as proposed by Councilman Zooks, staff feels like we understand what that direction is.
Yes.
As long as you all don't want
Well-
any like additional requirements in chapter 6,
Yeah.
we can.
All right, but it would at least be enough of a framework that if there were any additional changes, that could be adapted at the meeting.
Well, it would be helpful to know what sections they would be required or requested in, because it's very challenging to propose red
I
lines
understand.
without having that direction.
To that point, and not to belabor the point you were addressing earlier, Tiffany, but you just described a couple of examples of traditional neighborhood development,
Yes.
right? To me, it's a little confusing between that zoning designation and neighborhood center commercial.
Sure, we can provide a map in your zoning, in your packet, so that you can see where those zones are.
Yeah. How is that distinguished, the neighborhood center commercial from, say, a traditional neighborhood development?
A neighborhood center commercial is what your downtown is.
Okay.
So there is downtown
To me,
district,
that's
but
what is like, the nomenclature is a little confusing to me.
sure, well, those are what we've had consistent, so that they align with your zoning map, and where those are. But neighborhood center commercial is in a few areas, but primarily those are your village centers and your historic downtown areas. East End is also included in that. Downtown district are normally one-offs, where you do see new development being proposed in downtown. Chronicle Mill, for instance, is an example of downtown district. But otherwise, neighborhood center commercial is what you would see along our Main Street and along Catawba Street on the historic storefronts. It's also what you'd see down at the village centers in McLean. And so it's really, pocketed around commercial core, but small scale is the goal there. Highway commercial is larger scale, more automobile centric. Neighborhood center commercial, traditional neighborhood, those are more pedestrian focused, although certainly not only pedestrian focused, should still in our community be able to be accessed by automobile, but just in the way it's designed in those zoning designations and the regulations, it's a little bit different. But we would be happy to provide a map or anything that's helpful for visual so you can understand where those zones currently are, both where they're zoned that way by right and where those are already approved conditional zoning.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I will note for the record, we are in public hearing. No one signed up for public comment at the public hearing. That being said, I'm assuming, unless there's any other questions or concerns, it seems as though the sentiment of council is that there would be a motion to continue this item, this public hearing, until what, the August 4th, 2025 regular city council meeting.
When's y'all's next ABC?
We meet the fourth, well, it'll be the 21st. Typically it's the fourth Monday, but this
Fourth Monday.
It'll be the 21st.
21st of
July, 5 p.m.
All right, so do I have a motion?
Motion to continue the public hearing to the August 4th meeting.
All right, motion made by Alex, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed. I'm prepared to vote on it as presented. So this item is continued, the public hearing is continued until August 4th, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And I would assume that leads us to item C4, which is consider approval of TA 2025-02, removal of ABC package store / beer and wine exclusive discount store use from list of permitted commercial uses within the highway commercial HC district. And I'm assuming, in light of what we've just done, that this item also needs to be continued until our August 4th, 2025 meeting. So is there
Motion to
something?
continue item C5 until our August 4th. C4.
C4.
Sorry, I accidentally checked off C4.
Yes. All right. So motion made by Alex, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed. Catherine has stepped out of the room. Is that considered a? Records a yes vote. So it's 4-1. All right. So that item is continued as well. That leads us to C5. Consider approval of pre-qualified on-call transportation consultants list and representative master services agreement. Hello, Reagan Murphy is here to present this topic for the planning staff.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Thank you all so much for having me back to talk through the outcomes of our pre-qualified on-call transportation consultant call and interview sessions. So as we talked through the last time I was before you, the purpose of this call that we put out for qualifications for transportation engineering and planning firms was to identify a list of firms that we could leverage for our development teams who need TIA services, as well as for city-led projects, whether they be city-sponsored development projects, grant applications for capital improvements and funding, or other types of related transportation and traffic engineering services. And our objective was to identify several firms. You'll remember I talked before about how in the past we've had one designated firm. We wanted to expand the list to offer both the city and our development teams a little more flexibility in the firm they choose to go with. So our selection process, we opened our RFQ for 4 weeks in May. We received 9 qualifications packages. Staff reviewed and scored all of those, and we ultimately selected 6 firms to advance to our round of interviews. Staff and Mayor Pro Tem Heffron interviewed all 6 firms on Tuesday, June 17th. And after discussion and scoring and evaluating all 6 of those firms, we ultimately selected 4 for our proposed pre-qualified list.
And that was more fun than I've ever had in my entire life.
Yes, it's a great day. I do really want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Heffron for his time that day, and you know, it was a long one, but we made it through, and here we are, moving forward. So those 4 firms that we selected through the interview process, I think the mic is actually picking me up now, are Bolton and Mink, GFT Incorporated, which is formerly Gannett Fleming. They are completing a merger right now with Trans Systems, so that after they finalize that merger, they will be GFT Incorporated, but it's the same folks. Kimley Horn, who is the firm that we've used for the past 7 to 8 years on our TIA work, and then Kittleson and Associates. And I've got just a brief overview of each firm. I'll fly through these very quickly. Bolton and Mink is local, or they have a local Charlotte office with nearly 70 staff across a number of different disciplines. They have contracts on similar types of projects with communities across our region and other communities outside of the Charlotte region, as well as in South Carolina. And one highlight that I wanted to share with you from their submittal package and interview is in the last 10 years, they've helped their clients secure more than $260 million in capital improvement funds for transportation through federal and state grant programs. So I think they'll be a really great asset to us and to the development teams operating in our community. The proposed presenter to all of you will be Aaron Cook, who is also their proposed designated project manager. GFT Incorporated, I know y'all have some experience hearing from the folks at Gannett Fleming. One really great benefit of working with Gannett Fleming is several of their staff have extensive experience and partnerships with NCDOT, both Division 12 as well as a statewide organization. They have, again, a number of contracts with communities of similar sizes to us, as well as some slightly larger communities across North Carolina. And they also bring to the table the opportunity to leverage some big data platforms that they have access to, so that we can actually collect real-time traffic counts to expedite some of our traffic studies, and also confirm some of those counts. So recently we've gotten some questions, you know, how accurate are the projections of traffic counts that we see put forward in TIAs, especially when those counts might happen, you know, a couple years before the project ultimately is considered. So Gannett Fleming and a couple of our other firms have access to data sets that will allow us to check those and potentially bring updated real-time counts to council, or talk through how accurate those assumptions were as you all consider projects. Michael Holder will be the lead presenter to all of you for any TIAs put forward by Gannett Fleming. Kimley Horn, as I noted before, they have over 7 years experience doing TIA work with our city. Also, their new TIA lead that they're proposing, Laura Reed, is a Belmont resident, and so she's very much looking forward to the opportunity to work with the city. She will be actually stepping in as the lead presenter on the traffic studies, and then Kimley Horn is also designating Nat Hayward, who is on their planning side, to present any projects that need that angle as well. Again, they have contracts with communities across our region and beyond, and they bring a really great full turnkey service from planning to design to implementation to grant writing. So we're really excited to keep working with them. And finally, Kittleson and Associates. Once again, their project manager is also a Belmont resident, Justin Banson. He's also, again, the designated lead presenter to City Council. Again, Kittleson has contracts across the region and beyond. They have a Charlotte office, supplemented by offices across the state of North Carolina. And one unique thing Kittleson brings to the table is they actually have authored the highway capacity manual that's published and adhered to by FHWA and NCDOT for the last several iterations. They also write and author a number of other guides and manuals on best practices for roadway design, traffic studies, So they're not only doing the TIA work, but they're actually really on the cutting edge of how that work is done and how the federal and state governments assess the quality of those designs and the studies. So we're really excited to work with them as well. So moving forward from tonight, we're asking you to approve the list of those 4 firms and also authorize staff to negotiate final master services agreements based on the representative agreement included in your packet with those 4 firms. During July, staff will, if authorized, coordinate those final MSAs with the firms that we've selected. Go through coordination with their legal departments to make sure that everyone is able to sign, and then at a future council meeting, we'll bring those final MSAs back to you for approval via a consent agenda. So with that, what we're asking of you tonight is to approve the list as presented and recommended by staff, and then following that, authorize staff to negotiate those agreements. With that, I yield to questions.
Questions for?
I don't have any issue with the firms that were selected, and many thanks to staff and Jim for your time going through that vetting process. So if we have a specific need where you feel like one of these firms may be a better fit than others, that's pretty easy to make that selection. But if it's more general purpose, TIAs, things like that, just for my own edification, what's the process for determining sort of the order that you contact these firms?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and we're still nailing down exactly what that process will look like internally. Currently, we plan to present that list of firms to each development team that is deemed to need a TIA. And so if the development team has existing relationships with one of the firms on those lists, they'd be able to ask to work with that firm. So they would have, the ability to say, hey, we have a great relationship with Gannett Fleming. We're working with them on this other project. We want to work with them.
But for our own internal needs, you're saying you're
For
still working through
internal
that
needs.
process, how that would be prioritized?
Yeah, so for city-led projects is what you're asking, absolutely. So for city-led projects, and we did think about designating, one firm as kind of the city project lead. The reason we didn't do that is we feel that each of the 4 firms brings unique expertise in slightly different areas. But yeah, if the city came up with a project or had a grant application, for example, or needed support on something, we would either make a determination based on the expertise that we know each firm has and reach out to a firm directly, or we might develop a scope and ask all 4 to bid on that specific project scope to compete for the work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, we have outlined for us here what we need to do, so I first entertain a motion to approve the pre-qualified non-firm call list as presented. Motion by Charlie, seconded by Jason. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Second motion, I will entertain a motion to authorize staff to negotiate and finalize a master services agreement with each approved pre-qualified firm.
So moved.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That also passes unanimously. Thank you, Reagan.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great plan.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful. All right, so that brings us to C6, traffic calming measures, Belmead neighborhood. Chief Falls will present on this topic.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
So a citizen complaint came in, I put an investigation in here, it's more like an inquiry. The citizen complaint sparked a traffic calming investigation in reference to speeders in the Belmead subdivision, along with some safety concerns for pedestrians. The traffic calming committee met and discussed the matter. Before I get to there, I want to talk about what happens in step 1 is when the citizen complaint comes in, and upon receipt, step 2, the public works staff will evaluate whether the street meets the following criteria, and one of the criteria, section 2F, is the street is not a primary emergency services route as determined by the chief of police and the fire chief, and it was determined that It was a primary emergency services route, but under the direction of the council, we moved forward to the next step in traffic common policy. And then step 4 of the traffic common policy says, upon receipt of the community petition of support, the street will be subject of a speed study conducted by the police department where the following criteria must be made. We didn't have a community petition at that point. However, we went ahead and was proactive because we as well wanted to know if there was an issue with speeding in the neighborhood. So I went ahead and directed staff to conduct 2 different traffic studies for speeding down in the neighborhood, and also do some random speed checks, radar assignments in the area. So, come back over here. And I'd like to refer to, in your packet, to the actual first study that was conducted on May 27th to June 3rd, because I duplicated it in here when I was putting this PowerPoint together. So I apologize for that, but when we get to the June 3rd one, we'll go to there. So if you refer to your packet for the May 27th through June 3rd traffic common study. We located the study at 4046 Belmead Circle facing north, which our stealth stat device actually is a radar unit. It's in a box in that solar panel, and it actually does get both directions of which way traffic is flowing. And the speed limit on Belmead Circle was actually 25 miles an hour. There were 4,971 vehicles that traveled on Belmead Circle during the time of the study. The average speed was 18 miles an hour, and 85% of the vehicles were traveling at 18 miles or slower. And then we had one vehicle at 56 miles an hour. I'd like to think that that was somebody trying to get the top speed.
That was Jason.
Yeah, Jason. Jason was getting the top speed. And then out of 4,971 vehicles, 8 vehicles exceeded the posted speed limit by more than 5 miles an hour. And then it goes in to talk about within at least a 48-hour speed study period, less than 1% of the vehicles were reported traveling at a speed of more than 5 miles an hour of posted speed limit, which did not exceed the 15% threshold. The average daily traffic on Belmead Circle was 710 vehicles, which does exceed the 250 vehicle minimum average day traffic volume, as referring back to the traffic common policy guidelines, section C under 4. And the recommendations based upon the results of the specific study is there is a small number of vehicles speeding, and there will be supplemental studies completed, and I have those in place as well at this time. At this time, traditional law enforcement activities are feasible in reducing the small number of violators on Belmead Circle. The traffic unit will continue to monitor the traffic and take action if necessary, enforcement action or educational. And at this time, Belmead Circle will receive no further consideration for traffic common devices unless otherwise directed by City Council, and then we'll go into the June 3rd through June 9th, and it's the same exact thing, except we moved the location of the traffic device, the self-stat, to 4249 Belmead Circle facing north, which also gets both directions. Again, the speed limit was 25. During this study, there were 3,007 vehicles that traveled on Belmead Circle during this time. The average speed again was 18 miles an hour, and 85% of the vehicles were traveling at 22 miles an hour or slower. And the max speed this time was lower, actually, was 41 miles an hour. And out of the 3,007 vehicles, 48 vehicles exceeded the posted speed limit by more than 5 miles an hour. Within at least the 48-hour speed study period, 6% of the vehicles were reported traveling at a speed of more than 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, which didn't exceed the 15% threshold based on the traffic common guideline policy. Average daily traffic on Belmead Circle was 501 vehicles, which does exceed the 250 minimal average daily traffic volume. And the same results were noted as far as moving forward with the process unless otherwise directed by City Council. And that's all I have. Do y'all have any questions?
Just thanks to you and your staff for coming out and doing this study. I know we had some conversation about it, and I think it was kind of prompted most recently by a near-miss accident, as you know, with a kid on a bike that was run off the road by a speeder. And from the results of your study, it's not a consistent problem that we have, but
have been in contact with Jonathan, and we are looking into the locations to put 2 to 3 speed limit signs throughout the neighborhood, even though, you know, the ordinance states that it's 35 in the city and 25 in neighborhoods. I think it's still a good educational thing. Wouldn't cost a lot of money for us to put additional signs in both directions in the neighborhood, just to make sure people do know what the speed limit is, as a reminder, other than just our devices in the neighborhood, and also seeing the police, because, you know, as well as I do, we can't be there all the time. But I have directed our staff to be more prompt in the area and do some traffic studies down there, some radar assignments, and we'll also tally that up, and I'll try to get that to you when I get the results of that. But that's going to be an ongoing thing, so hopefully we won't catch anyone in the neighborhood who's speeding or on stop signs.
Thank you. And anything else, Mary? That would it be appropriate to entertain a motion to adopt Chief Falls' recommendations, or is that just for information only?
I think it's just for informational purposes only right now. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that, Chief Falls. So that brings us to new item C7, which was moved from the consent agenda, which is DBDA bylaw amendments. And just to sort of try and streamline this discussion, am I correct in understanding that really the topic of discussion here is going to be whether to require members be Belmont residents or at least business owners of a business within the district served by the DBDA? Is there anything beyond that?
Should we limit to just the district?
Well, I mean, that's what we can talk about, but I mean, is there anything else other than?
But what if the district expands, right?
You know,
Or just Belmont-based businesses, because like.
That's what I'm saying.
You can have a business located outside the downtown district that has an interest in seeing the downtown district succeed, and maybe, you know. So I think
it's just
Belmont-based.
if you own a business in Belmont.
Yeah.
so either a Belmont resident and or
City limits.
owner of a business within Belmont city limits.
Yeah.
All right.
And is the resident in the city limits as well? Or?
Right, because obviously there are a number of people on the DBDA right now that are Belmont residents, but they're not business
Do we have a
owners.
situation right now, though, where there's someone that's on the board that's not a Belmont
I think we
resident?
were talking about.
I don't think currently that's the case.
Because what I wouldn't want is that person who's immediately kicked off. I think
Yes.
they serve their existing terms, but.
I agree.
Could be grandfathered.
Yes. So I think if you turn in your agenda pack to page 83, I think the appropriate place to put this would be Article 3, Board of Directors, Section 1A, Voting Members. And it says, if you look at the last couple sentences, the Belmont City Council shall appoint all voting members to the Board of Directors. I think we put something in there. Voting members shall be either residents of the city, a resident of the city of Belmont, or owner of a business located within Belmont city limits.
Yes.
For the Belmont resident, are we saying in the city limits as well? For the Belmont resident?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
yes. Does that, do we all have that?
There's a lot, Laura.
All right. So I'd add the next to last sentence of Article 3, Section 1A. How should I say this? Each voting member shall either be a resident of the city of Belmont or, maybe and/or, because I guess and/or, an owner of a business located within Belmont city limits. And then the last sentence, preference will be given to candidates who are currently serving or have served on the Main Street Committee. And then the only other change I'd have is if you look at Article 2, Section 1A, there's a cross-reference to an article, but no articles identified. I'd make, that should be Article Roman numeral 10. So to promote the preservation, protection, and use of Belmont's designated Main Street district is further evidenced in Article 10 herein. Any other issues?
Just to distinguish between the
changes to this set of bylaws versus what is there currently, there are or are not term limits currently on the board members?
I thought there were.
I've got
Yeah.
the red line. What section is that, Jim, do you know?
Term limits,
The only reason I asked that is the term limit, we started the clock from the point of the amendment to the bylaws, or were there already those term limits in place?
I think they were already, so it's the same sections, Article 3, Section 1B. Yeah, Article 3, Section 1B is where it is now.
Okay, yeah, page 84.
Yeah. But that could be rearranged, because I think when I helped draft these, sometimes you rearrange things to be more, in a better section where it made more sense.
It states section, it looks like it was Article 3, Section 1A before. Term of for each office shall be 3 years, with 1/3 of members expiring each year. In addition, appointed members shall be named to serve terms established by their offices to allow for staggered terms. 4 initial appointments will be for the terms of 3 years, 3 initial appointments will be for terms of 2 years, and 3 initial appointments will be for terms of 1 year following. Does that make sense, the way I'm reading this?
I've been told, there's two different things what Miles is reading. So I think my understanding, and I think staff has confirmed that term limits currently exist, and that has been my experience because there have been people who have rolled off the board that have been term limited out.
Not voluntarily.
Right, they're term limited out.
Right.
And so that I believe is there are term. That was always my understanding. Now, what Miles has just read, Charlie, I think that was creating like staggered terms so that everyone wouldn't be up all at once. Yeah. Which I think, regardless of how that's stated, that obviously has already occurred. Because the corporation was formed, it's been ongoing for a number of years now. So that's sort of how it was supposed to be set up.
They can do 2 terms in a row. 1 year is a cooling off period, and then come back to run 2 terms.
And although if you are appointed to fill a term, you can fill the term plus serve 2 consecutive full terms of your own. So there is a potential to serve more than 6 years if you are appointed to fill an existing term. Any other thoughts, questions? All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the bylaws as amended.
So moved.
Motion by Jason, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you. So that concludes the regular agenda. That brings us to other business. Let's start with Alex.
Yep, so first of all, I'll just kick it off. I don't have much tonight, but again, want to send out my condolences to the Martin family. I did not get to work with Charlie that long, as Jim did, and Martha and others who were here earlier. But definitely have known him since I was in high school. I think he was a great person and he did a lot for Belmont. So that's pretty much all I have for him.
Thank you. Charlie.
I'm going to echo what Alex just said. Condolences to the Martin family. He was a pillar in this community for a very long time. He will definitely be missed. Also, thank you to all the first responders and everybody that had a hand in putting together Juneteenth and Red, White, and Belmont. I know a lot of people had a good time there for both of those events, so thank you for all you did. I think that's all I got.
Same thing, condolences to the Martin family. Thoughts, prayers going up for them. And then, again, thank you to Fire Police for the July 4th event. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Catherine. Jason.
Again, sympathies and prayers to Don and the whole Martin family. Mayor Martin was a staple in Belmont, especially anything concerning sports, and we're very grateful for his service to our town. Congratulations to the DBDA. Many thanks to the Fire, Police, and Public Works for all your work with
hours away just to see the fireworks show that went off halfway. We'll get to that.
We'll miss out.
Yes. But a couple of maintenance, I guess, issues, Miles, I wanted to bring to your attention. Someone had pointed out to me today, the lights around the restrooms at Stowe Park appear to be out. I think it's kind of under the roof line around that building there. If we could have someone to look at those, they appear to be out in overnight hours. One other thing to maybe consider going forward as we're looking at improvements for the new bridge across the river here on 74. This came up at the last tourism development meeting. The TDA would love to consider or evaluate partnering with the city to really do something nice there in terms of the entranceway to Belmont and to say Catawba Street, as we're kind of working through that with DOT and creating a really nice entranceway as you're coming into town off of 74 there. So keep that in mind. We can certainly discuss it further. Lastly, just want to thank the team from police, fire, the planning department, and the other Vision Zero team members for their participation in the recent Leadership Institute, and congratulations on the award for Belmont's new Vision Zero program. That's all.
Thank you. From my perspective, a couple of things. Certainly, I share everyone's sympathies and condolences to the Martin family. I did have a chance to work with Charlie for almost 4 years, and it seemed like he knew everyone in Belmont or coached their child in soccer or baseball. My favorite Charlie story was I was going on a European vacation, and he asked me where I was going, and I listed off a bunch of destinations, including the Principality of Liechtenstein, which is a very small, landlocked micro-country. And sure enough, Charlie was like, "Oh, hey, do you know so-and-so? He lives there." And so it was always a pleasure to work with Charlie, and he'll be deeply missed. He did so much for Belmont. And, if there was a ribbon cutting or a chamber event or whatever, he was always there. So sympathies and condolences to Dot and his entire family. I was out there for the 4th of July Red, White, and Belmont. I echo everyone's kudos to all of our staff who put on the event. Since Jason did allude to it, and I know there's been talk in some quarters, perhaps we could just get an update as to what specifically went on with the fireworks. As I understand, there was some sort of a malfunction of some sort that prevented the remainder of the fireworks and the finale from going off. But just so, obviously, we as council and the city manager were not sitting there lighting up the fireworks. But just, it was a malfunction.
It was a malfunction, yeah. What I understood was that 2 pallets of fireworks didn't go off, plus the entire finale didn't go off. I think there was one of the fireworks exploded near the ground. I think it injured one of the people that from the fireworks company. There was some issues with, I think the way they lit a portion of them was by hand.
Oh.
And then another portion.
Yeah, that's what Wile E. Coyote.
I think that's like standard practice, you to do that electronically. And I think they had both of it kind of set up. And they had an issue with lighting some of them by hand. Some of them weren't going off. They had an issue with the wiring on the ones that were electronic, which I think was the finale. And so, out of precaution, I believe that we kind of put the brakes on, allowing the company to continue on, like after everybody thought the fireworks were over, whether they're still considering whether to light them off or not. And staff did a great job to state that that was not appropriate to go ahead and light the rest of them at that time. There was a lot of people leaving. And so, yeah, we've reached out to the vendor, and of course they have apologized to staff, stating that they weren't real happy with it, and offered up whether we take a refund or possibly using them at some point in the future. I believe staff is looking towards the refund of a portion of the ones that were not lit, and the ones that were not lit, they also had to wait several hours. What I understood to be like 2 o'clock in the morning. Staff had to be on standby in the fire department until NCDOT approved transporter to come get these fireworks because they couldn't just put them in the back of the truck and take off. They had to wait for a period of time. So our staff, of course, did a good job by waiting to make sure that everything was secured and appropriate like it always needs to be during an event like that. So yeah, there were issues. We paid for a full fireworks show. We got a half a fireworks show. So
next year it's going to be a fireworks show and a half.
Everybody come next year. Everybody come next year.
It's gonna be crazy.
And if I've left out anything, I know the fire department had really.
That pretty much sums it up.
Okay, yeah, I asked them to give me a summary, and they did a good job to kind of wrap up the things that they saw on their end. And the police department, of course, did the same thing as far as securing the area. And then our staff as well for the Main Street folks. So, you know, they contracted with the vendor themselves. So, yeah, a few issues that occurred, but next year,
Yes.
bigger and better.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. It's always on.
What's that?
That's the tagline for next year.
Bigger, better.
Yeah. Just a couple of other things. I've had some people reach out, and I know I brought this up in a previous meeting. We've talked about the City Hall renovations themselves, but in the meantime, as City Hall sits there, you know, and what it represents, and people understand that it's Old City Hall, I've had some concerns about what it's looking on the exterior, and maybe it needs to be freshened up because it is still an external public-facing projection of our city. And Miles said that they go look. And, you know, these are things I don't think that should.
Cosmetic, yeah.
Yes, cosmetic, not the structural renovations we're considering as part of what Health's doing. But I'm hoping that we can undertake some of that and just spruce it up and make it look a little bit more presentable. With our consent agenda item about the street closures for Boo Fest, that reminds me of our yearly song and dance with North Belmont and the Barricades. And so it's July and Halloween's not for several months, but I'm hoping that, you know, with staff and the police and if anyone from North Belmont is listening, and I'm going to reach out, I think, to some representatives there, but I'm very hopeful, if nothing else, between now and in the end, that we can accomplish you know, working something out for that event this year so that we're not, you know, sitting there at the October workshop and there's like, well, there's nothing we can do, it's too late. So I'm hoping I can just get that on everyone's radar and we can find a way to ensure that that goes off smoothly. And then the last thing, we had brought up, I believe, several meetings ago, the monitoring data at the Dell website, and I believe Miles, you or Kevin presented that data to us in a weekly update, but I just wanted to clarify, Miles, would it be correct then that the developer has done what they have been tasked with doing under the conditional zoning? They have done they have complied, basically.
From my understanding, they have complied. They are gathering the data, and you can tell by the spreadsheets that was presented from the turbidity. They've been monitoring it for 2022 till now. What the data shows, that's...
And what is done with it.
Yeah, what's done with it is another thing, but they have been monitoring.
They've done what we required them to do. Yes. So,
For the North Belmont, what's the first step for that?
well, I think you got to.
Wasn't there a form?
Well, yeah, there's like a special event permit, but I believe there's some money associated with that. And the hang-up has always been, it's not an HOA, it's just sort of the neighborhood getting together. So who's the applicant, who pays the money? That's sort of been the hang-up in the past. So hopefully, you know, we got 3 months. Hopefully we can find a workable solution this year. So, and I mean, it went off fine last year, as I recall, but I think obviously everyone would be happier with the barricades and everything. So I sincerely hope that we can find a way to work that out. Yeah. Miles, did you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Parks, did you?
No.
All right.
Welcome aboard again to our Jason.
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations.
Oh,
I was just gonna make a motion
Oh,
to
he's getting
adjourn.
ready.
All right. All right, motion to adjourn made by Alex, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?